Hi, this is I'll Explain. This time I will explain the Gundam Unit 5 Boosted. Gundam Unit 5, or more accurately Gundam Type 5, model number RX-78-5, is a twin of Gundam Unit 4. While these two Gundams are usually referred to as G4 and G5, the G4 specifically is also an initiative that all branches of a Federation force, where the Army, Air Force, Navy, multiple arsenal of Space Force all come up with their own version of the next Gundam. However, our G4 and G5, or we should correctly identify them, Gundam Type 4 and Type 5, started as the very first batch of Gundams. The Federation had assembled 8 RX-78s in Jaburo to send off to Lunar 2. 3 of them were sent with the famous 13th Independent Fleet, while the other 5 remained in Jaburo until Zeon lost control of the space route above. Instead of throwing this prototype to the front line, the Federation decided to use them as testbed for other projects, the most important one being Gundam Mass Production Project, where they developed the GM. And so RX-78 Unit 4 and Unit 5 were used to test out the core block in place of the core fighter. While the original plan is to have Unit 4 and Unit 5 to test out which cooling system is better, it turns out both of them have their merits, so the Federation accepts both systems. I think here is a good point to note why I think it is more accurate to call Gundam Unit 4 and Gundam Unit 5 Gundam Type 4 and Gundam Type 5. That is because they are built with different specifications. Sure, they are both RX-78s, but they have different cooling system and they are clearly not RX-78-2 spec because they don't have a core fighter. Now that is out of the way, with G4 project's prototype out in the field, the Federation feels comfortable to let Type 4 and Type 5 out of Jaburo, and their destination is Arboaku, Zeon's final line of defense. However, the Federation also had some feedback from the field modification on various fronts, so they decided to upgrade the Type 4 and Type 5 known as Boosted. Here is Gundam Type 5 Boosted, model number RX-78-5 BST or Boosted. Let's start from the head. The head is pretty much the same as RX-78-1 and -2. The vents are different because Type 5 has a different cooling system. The torso is where most of the changes are made. With the core fighter out of the way, along with docking and transformation mechanisms, the Type 5 has the room to fit a bigger, more powerful Minovsky reactor, and the Federation did so for the Boosted. The radiator layout is different from RX-78-1 and -2 because the cooling system is different. The cockpit area also gets a bit more armor thanks to the weight saving from the removal of the core fighter. The skirts are pretty much in line with RX-78-1 and -2 but with slightly more armor. The Type 5 legs are also very much the same as RX-78-1 and -2 with more apogee motors and bigger thrusters. Under the hood, the Type 5 Boosted adopted the magnetic coating from RX-78-3 for the joints, allowing the Type 5 joints to move with near zero friction. This means the Type 5 legs would be more responsive, move faster, and deliver more power, meaning it is more agile. The Type 5's arms are more or less the same as RX-78-1 and -2. And for the Boosted, Federation decided to install newly developed external thruster units on the shoulders and weapon ports on the forearms. The external thruster units are armored and built with their own propellant tank. However, in order to get maximum efficiency out of them, the Type 5 shoulder apogee motor is enlarged to provide a ramjet effect, although this is once again under the hood. The weapon ports would be covered when we talk about the weapons. The Type 5 Boosted arms also have magnetic coatings applied to the joints, again making the arms more responsive and move faster with more power. The Type 5 boosted backpack is once again pretty much the same as RX-78-1 and -2, except for the additional thruster and propellant tanks added at the bottom. There are new thrusters added in the middle, and there are those on the inside of the propellant tanks. The thrusters with propellant tanks have their own pylon and can be used as aimbag limbs, as well as changing the direction of their thrust with the rudders. They are not meant to block off the original main thrusters, but this G-frame does it to keep the Gatling gun more stable. These pylons also work as mounting points for the Gatling gun and its drum magazine. Oh, and before we move to the Gundam Type 5 boosted arsenal, it is covered in lunar titanium or Gundam titanium armor like RX-78-2. While the core fighter is removed, the optical computer and learner AI are still on board, allowing the Type 5 boosted adapted to its pilot as it fights and adapting to different environments if Arboaku turns out to be a middle stop. Gundam Type 5 boosted arsenal isn't too impressive when you put it on a list, but there are quite a bit of thought put into it. Start with the falcons on the head, same 60mm standard Federation fare. While they are less effective against late warm Zeon mobile suits like Rekdom and Jilgok, they can still score kills on their weak points. A pair of beam sabers on the back, standard equipment but one that always works. They are especially deadly in combination with the Type 5 boosted magnetic coating coated joints and learner AI. Gundam Type 5 boosted sports the Hyper Beam Rifle, an improved version of the standard RX-78 beam rifle. The Hyper Beam Rifle has better rate of fire and it is capable of shooting larger beam bolts in order to capitalize on the larger reactor on the Type 5 boosted. Gundam Type 5 boosted has a shield, but it doesn't come with this G-frame, so we'll skip it for now. Next up is the weapon ports on the forearm. The tiny protrusion here is not part of the runner, but the muzzle of the beam gun of the weapon port. This is another optional part to capitalize on the larger reactor on Type 5 boosted. While this beam gun weapon port isn't quite as economical as the beam spray gun, it is still on the less powerful side, more for close range where volume of fire is more important than penetration or stopping power. And of course, we saved the best for last, the Gundam Type 5 boosted main weapon, the Giant Gatling or 90mm Gatling gun, if you want to be academic. The Federation picked the Giant Gatling for Gundam Type 5 boosted to cover Gundam Type 4 boosted, which is armed with a Mega Beam launcher. The idea is to use the Giant Gatlings to provide cover while the Mega Beam launcher recharges and or during cooldown. Of course, most importantly is the traditional weapons like Gatling gun are relatively abundant in the Federation's arsenal. And the Federation did have success with the 90mm Gatling gun on Earth, so nothing should stop it from working in space. In addition, unlike the Mega Beam launcher on Type 4 boosted, the Giant Gatling is relatively cheap to replace, so they expect the pilots to ditch the Giant Gatling once it ran out of ammunition. The Giant Gatling can be mounted on the pylons on the backpack with its drum magazine mounted on the other side. And the chain we see here is just a chute to keep the ammo belt from dragging elements into the gun, especially in a zero-gravity war zone where all sorts of debris goes every direction. The Giant Gatling can also be fired off the mount with one or both hands, depending on the situation, for more flexible shooting angles. All in all, Gundam Type 5 boosted is a very well-balanced late-type RX-78. However, there are very little records of its combat record in the Siege of Arboaku. There is also no record of it after the 1-year war. However, the Type 5 boosted along with Type 4 boosted are more impactful than their combat record for Federation suggested for mobile suit development. Not only will the base GM type use the core fighter replacement part from the Type 4 and Type 5, but their cooling systems are used for GM variants with specific needs. The Type 4 boosted and the Type 5 boosted designs are also further developed into the RX-80 and RX-81 series. One of their direct descendants is the GM Quail we had looked at before. Thanks for watching.